Hello, my name is Hans Jeevers. I'm a contributor for ProGolfNow.com and Fansided.com. You can find me on Twitter at JeeversGolf. And today there were two articles that were published regarding this week's RBC Heritage on Fansided.com and ProGolfNow.com from me. One article is from a DFS perspective of DraftKings, the other being from a FanDuel perspective. And of course, my player picks are in those articles for those specific sites. So today I'll briefly just touch base regarding the golf course and a couple of my picks for this week's RBC Heritage. I should say last week's Charles Schwab Challenge, the restart to the PGA Tour season, was outstanding as a fan. The final round on Sunday was fun to watch. I believe 5 or 6 guys were tied at one point down the stretch. Of course, Daniel Berger went on to win in a playoff, beating out Colin Morikawa. So this week, we move to the great state of South Carolina, Hilton Head. And we have a tournament that's been on the PGA Tour for decades. And it's always been at this golf course, which is a good thing. Some tournaments on the PGA Tour move around quite a bit and there's no consistency, and when you're trying to assess data on player statistics on a particular golf course, that's not fun because there's no consistency. So this week we have that as a DFS person. It's great to see. So I will say, obviously, you're going to have certain players that arrive here at Hilton Head that have never played the course. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm going to automatically not play those particular golfers. That's just not smart. However, it is a key factor as you're evaluating certain players. So maybe some mid-tier players, it could be a tiebreaker. Well, this guy has played a few times before compared to the other guy that has a similar skill set that has not. So it's just one of the pieces of data that I look at. Harbortown Golf Links is the host of the 2020 RBC Heritage. It is characterized as a coastal track. However, really, in actuality, only about 3 holes are on the water. The other 15 holes are more inland. You may even actually feel like you're playing in Florida at some point when you're on the inland portion of the course. So it's not Pebble Beach, for example, which is much more exposed to the elements and is a traditional coastal track. So keep that in mind. This golf course is a par 71 that measures about 7,099 yards. It is a course that is rather short on the PGA Tour. You see certain golf courses on the PGA Tour that are much, much longer in distance. So what that means for the field this week is certain players that come to certain tournaments on the PGA Tour know they really don't have a chance to win, will have a chance to win this week because power will not be a factor. It will be neutralized this week. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you have a guy like a Brian Stewart that can only hit it 275 off the tee, and you have a Dustin Johnson that can bomb at 340 or 350, well, that's a huge advantage on certain golf courses, okay, like a Kapalua in Hawaii, okay, where it's just you feel like the fairways are mammoth and they can just crush it. And wherever they hit it off the tee, it's not punitive and they can still get to the green. No trees, no water. Well, that's not the case here. The course designer, Pete Dye, probably had that in mind when he built this track. So a credit to him in that regard. It's fun to watch golf courses where power is not the only skill set that matters. I shouldn't say it quite that definitively, but some of these guys, they just overpower golf courses and don't make it fun for certain players on tour, like a Kevin Kisner, who can only hit it so far, or Brian Stewart. So keep that in mind. So precision off the tee is what's going to matter this week. Precision off the tee. It doesn't matter if you only hit it 270. That's fine. Just put the ball in the fairway. If you hit it in the trees, you could be punching out on your second shot and only advance it 20 or 30 yards. You won't be going for the green, and you will be looking at a bogey or a double bogey. Okay, so you don't want that. Look for guys that are accurate off the tee. Okay. Also, I would look for guys that are good at scrambling around the green, that putt rather well. You know, I mentioned last week that the greens were rather small there at Colonial. Well, they're even smaller this week. I think they may be the smallest greens on the PGA Tour. So I think it's 3,700 square feet. So very small greens. So even the best ball strikers in the PGA Tour are going to miss some greens this week because they're so small. So you want to be able to scramble to get up and down. That's important. So, so let's take a look at my DraftKings lead pick for the week, and that's going to be Sungjae Im, 22-year-old Korean. 2 years ago, he, as a Korn Ferry player trying to obtain his tour card, played outstanding on the Korn Ferry Tour. He ended up getting Player of the Year for the Korn Ferry Tour in 2018 and earned his tour card of the PGA Tour. And his rookie year was last year, 2019. And, you know, some players may come on tour and feel a little bit of the bright lights and the pressures of things that are expected of them and not perform. Well, that wasn't the case with Sungjae. I was a little surprised even for myself. I knew he was good, but I looked at his history in 2019. He had 15 top 26 finishes. I mean, that's rather consistent. Very impressive, and it did earn him Rookie of the Year on the PGA Tour. So he went on to the President's Cup last year, the annual event that the United States plays the international squad, not the Ryder Cup, but all the other countries basically. And Sungjae Im was the top point earner on the President's Cup team, and he is Korean, obviously, as I mentioned earlier. So the bright lights don't bother him. He played well last week on a track that's very similar to the course this week at Hilton Head. At Colonial, he finished 10th. Played rather well, so he knocked off any rust he may have. He did miss the cut here last year in his first attempt, but I'm not concerned. He's a much better player than he was over a year ago, and I expect him to come through this week. So I think he's got great equity in the win department. He only comes on the slate at $9,700. And if you look at, let's say, a Rory McIlroy that's on the slate as the highest on DraftKings at 11.3, I think. You know, if Rory doesn't win, I mean, I don't want a top 25 from a guy that's $11,300. You better win for that price point. I think Sungjae Im really comes in on the slate on DraftKings at a really nice price point of $9,700. So also, you know, I evaluated his stats, his season stats, and his player statistics are just awesome. I mean, he's a great ball striker. He's just a great all-around player, and I think he's going to fit just fine on this course. And the second time around, I expect him to play much better. I should also say that in March of this year, he did win his first event on the PGA Tour, the Honda Classic. So I'm putting all my ducks in the row on Mr. M to maybe have his second win of his PGA Tour career. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. So, but I expect him to perform rather well. So from the DraftKings perspective, I do have a sleeper for you. And you want to find somebody that is low in cost with high upside. And I found a Brian Stewart, a guy that only comes in on the slate on DraftKings at $6,600. And he's a guy that doesn't hit it very far, but he's very precise. He actually leads the PGA Tour in driving accuracy coming into this week at 73.33% of the time he hits it in the fairway. That's what you want to see this week. It doesn't matter that he doesn't hit it in 320. Because it's not going to help you this week. You got to hit it in the fairway. So I think Stewart's got some good upside. I expect him to make the weekend, and I wouldn't doubt a top 20, top 25 performance from Stewart. I would say when you have a low-cost person like that, keep your expectations realistic. and understand that there is some risk involved when you go to a player at that low cost. So the DraftKings article is on fansided.com. You can find me at on Twitter at JeeversGolf, and I did post that article on my Twitter account this morning. Now I'll shift to FanDuel, and my lead FanDuel selection is South Carolina native Kevin Kisner, another gentleman that's very precise off the tee, very good at hitting greens in regulation, but he doesn't hit it that far. And he'll be the first to tell you that he can't win a lot of events on the PGA Tour because power is such a key element to win on those courses. Well, that's not the case here. He's finished in the top 11 the last 3 years at Harbour Town. He's played here 6 consecutive years and made the cut every season. I think his worst finish in 6 years here consecutively is 38th. So, but 3 straight top 11 finishes here. I expect him to perform well, and I'm quite sure that when the schedule comes out every year, Mr. Kisner circles RBC Heritage as soon as it comes out, because he wants to play this event. So Kevin Kisner on FanDuel is my lead selection. He arrives on the slate on FanDuel at $9,800. On DraftKings, Sungjae Im comes in at $9,700. My sleeper on DraftKings is Brian Stewart at $6,600. So if you want to get the rest of my selections for this week, go to fansided.com and progolfnow.com, or go to my Twitter account at JeeversGolf, and the articles are posted there as well. Have a great week and good luck to you. And before I sign off, thank you for all the likes I received and the people that subscribed. That's outstanding. I really appreciate it. And go out there and win some money this week.